Now we talked about this, all these categories and criteria, but if you're on if you're on an older version of this Xcode, then it will be quite different. It will be quite different for you, because Apple, with even the minor releases, actually changes its interfaces and the facilities that it offers. But recently, it has released another new programming language through which you can also create this universal or this iOS or the Mac applications, that's called Swift, the Swift programming language. So this Swift programming language, you can have a look by Googling it. It's a new language and it has to offer a lot, but we are going to stick to these Objective-C programming languages. So let us have a look at how to create our first, or start off at least by understanding what these files do. So we'll be starting out with the master detail application. So this master detail application is quite a detailed way of looking at our debug process, at our simulators, at our SDK, and at the files that this Xcode creates for us. So basically, this Xcode is going to create some initial staged file, some initial header file, some initial source file. So what I mean by the source file and the headers file, I'll be explaining that in a moment. But first, we need to create this with a specific name for our product. Think it. You need to think it in a way that as if we're creating a real application. Although this is a mocking application, we're not going to actually release this app in our app store right now. But we are going to create it as if it's going to be real. So we need a name for this first. Let us click next. So we need a name for this, and you can actually choose the language like Swift. If you are on this new version of this Xcode, which is 6.1.1, you will actually get the Swift option for the language. And you can actually choose which device to create for. You can choose this universal, which you can which will be able to create this for your Mac too. And you can also click or choose for iPad. You can choose for iPhone. So basically, we'll be sticking to this iPhone. And now we need a product name for this, otherwise this Apple is going to be complaining about it. So let's usually all programming courses, or all programming tutorials, even your college courses, they may start teaching you by writing an initial program called the Hello World. So if you have read at least one programming book, it will actually show you how to write a first Hello World program. So what this Hello World program does is that it basically prints out through by assigning a variable or by creating a new function, through which it prints out the two words or the phrase Hello World on the screen. It just shows you how to print those two words Hello World on the screen. But let's not stick to these conventions. Let's create something new, which is also simple and easy to understand. So because this is a practice program, let us name this as Practice-1. We might be creating several others. If we make a mistake, then we can change at that point. But because I'm going to show you the files, the source file, the header files, I'm going to explain to you how it works, and I'm going to show you how the main file works. So let me keep this a little simple. So I'm not going to use this core data right now, and I'll be choosing iPhone as I've told you. So my bundle will be in a form of com.prac.practice1. So my products, or the application that I'll be creating, will be named as Practice-1, and if I click next, it will prompt me to save in a particular folder. So I have actually created, let me show you. I've actually created this iPhone app development, and I'll be doing this for the tutorial. So I'll actually keep or store all these practice folders or files inside this tutorial folder. So you can do this for yourself because it's going to be easy when you start practicing. Now let's get back to our Xcode. So we'll be saving this in our tutorial, and it will be saved as a it will be saved on my Mac, but you can also save it on your iCloud or on a new server. So let's create this, and initially it gives you a lot of options, but we are really not interested at them at the moment. But let us see some of them. So basically, when you create your app, if you have an iPhone, you have actually seen that each app, even if you don't even have an iPhone, let me show you one. These are all apps. So these apps have a certain image for them. So by that image, and you can understand what sort of app are they referring to. If like this Google Chrome app has this, I guess this is a Pokeball or something like that. I'm really not sure about that. So this image actually reminds us what sort of app is this. Now this Xcode also has its own image, and this brackets, which is also a text editor, has its own image. So I think you get the idea that each app needs to have an identification image so that we understand what sort of app is that. Now we can because we don't have any images right now, so we're just going to use the Apple icon or the launch image. So in here, for the deployment part, you can actually look at what version of it are you going to use. Is it 8.1, 8.0 or 7.1? We're going to use it for 8.1, and it's going to be iPhone. The main interface, this main interface is actually the program that starts your application whenever an user clicks on your app. So this main interface actually gets triggered whenever someone wants to launch your app. Now the device orientation tells us in what position can we enable this app to rotate. So if we want to just keep it portrait, then we can click this off, click all the selection box off, and if we want to keep all of them, then you're okay to do that. Now you can also actually keep the status bar that appears at the very top of the iPhone. You can actually hide that, but maybe it's not that important. But if you're actually creating a game, then you should actually hide that. Now you can also keep this as a light form or as a default form. So we'll be looking at that in our simulator. So this will mainly be for iPhone 6. You can look into it here. We will be using the iPhone 6 simulator. Now there are some issues that Xcode will be complaining, but they're not a major issue for us to look at, because you can also change them later on. So we're not going to be going live with this because this is just a practice. Now let us look at what the capabilities are. In this capability, if you are creating a game, then you can actually turn this on. When you turn this on, you actually need to sign in as a developer with your Apple ID. When you sign in with your Apple ID, you can create a new game and submit it to Apple Store. So this, as I've talked about it, the Apple guys will be checking your game, and then they'll be sending you a report whether it can be published or not. So we're not going to go into all the details right now, because the more important stuff is learning about the Objective-C language at the first. We're going to look at the language constructs at the very beginning. Now let me show you one more thing again. This in-app purchase is actually going to show you how to get paid through your app. There are some apps which will enable you to download freely, but like games. So these games, when you download freely, they'll ask, after you play for some time, they'll ask you to buy something. So you can buy coins, you can buy credits. So there are many options like that, but we are not going to look at all of them right now, and we are more interested in what these files are. So there are the header files and the source file. So you can actually look at the extension at the end. So this .m, .h, .m, .h are all the extensions for our files contained inside this Practice-1 folder. So when we are looking at this Practice-1 folder, it's actually housed inside our iPhone app development, this Practice-1. So it actually contains all these folders. I think you can guess what they are, and I'll be discussing briefly what they are, and I'll be moving on how to create our first variable. So let us move on to our Xcode. Now basically you can actually look at all these files, and when you click this supporting files, we can look at this main.m. So when we look at a .h extension file, this .h extension file refers to a header file, and when we look at a .m extension file, when we look at a file that has .m extension, it actually means it's a source file. So what does a header file do? What does a header file do? It actually is used for class interface declaration. So simply speaking, you actually declare your function prototype, or you actually declare your classes or your implementations. I mean, sorry, not your implementations, I mean your interfaces. So when this, let's have a look, this interface actually declares a master view controller. These codes are actually created by Xcodes for your simplicity, and we can actually dive into creating our iPhone app directly. Now this header file, they actually declare something. They don't implement anything. They don't use the memory for sure. When we refer to using the memory, which means your application is actually implementing or using that memory or running something on your phone or on your simulator, if it's just an application for testing. Now when we talk about the source files, apart from these header files, remember that the header files have the extension of .h and the source file have the extension of .m. So this .m extension file actually takes or imports, you can actually look at this master view controller .h is a header file. It declares an interface called master view controller, and this master view controller.m source file actually implements that master view controller interface. Now when we talk about implementing, we are actually also talking about invoking when we create functions. I think it's going to be a little confusing at first, but we'll get along well.